In the far north of Wisconsin, winter doesn't arrive quietly. It howls. It freezes the air. It paints the world in white and silence. But through the cold, through the snow, you can still hear something. A faint echo, rolling through the wind. Go, Pack, go. That chant, that heartbeat, belongs to a place unlike any other in professional sports. Green Bay. Population, barely over 100,000. Yet somehow this small, frozen city gave birth to one of the most successful, most beloved dynasties in football history. And their story is one of grit, faith, and community. A story born not in skyscrapers or million-dollar stadiums, but in the back room of a meatpacking plant. The year was 1919. The world was still healing from war. And in a small Wisconsin town, a young shipping clerk named Earl Curly Lambeau had an idea. He loved football, the contact, the competition, the teamwork. So, with the help of a friend, George Calhoun, he gathered a few local athletes and formed a team. They named themselves after their sponsor, the Indian Packing Company. The Green Bay Packers were born. At first, they played on rough, muddy fields. No locker rooms, no salaries, barely any fans. Just men who worked during the week and played on Sundays for pride. They wore leather helmets, thin jerseys, and hope. They weren't rich, they weren't famous, but they were tough, and they represented a city that refused to quit. By the late 1920s, the Packers began to grow. Curly Lambeau wasn't just their founder, he was their coach, their motivator, and their dreamer. Under him, the team won 6 NFL championships, becoming the first true powerhouse in the league. But success didn't mean security. This was still Green Bay, a small market surrounded by giants like Chicago, New York, and Detroit. The Great Depression hit hard. Money was scarce. The team nearly folded, more than once. And then something remarkable happened. When the Packers were about to go bankrupt, the people of Green Bay did something no other city in America had ever done. They bought the team themselves. Ordinary fans, factory workers, shop owners, they chipped in their own money to save the team. Every share bought wasn't just ownership, it was identity. The Green Bay Packers became, and remain, the only publicly owned team in American professional sports. It wasn't business, it was belief. The city and the team became one. When the Packers won, Green Bay celebrated. When they lost, Green Bay stood by them. For decades, the franchise survived because of the faith of its people. And that faith would be tested again and rewarded when a man named Vince Lombardi walked through the doors of Lambeau Field. By the late 1950s, the glory days of Lambeau were long gone. The Packers had become a losing team. 10 years of disappointment, empty seats, and broken morale. The fans still came, bundled in thick coats, but deep down they wondered, would the magic ever return? In 1959, a stocky, determined man from New York arrived. He was intense, he was loud, and he was unlike anyone Green Bay had ever seen. His name was Vince Lombardi. Lombardi wasn't there to rebuild. He was there to resurrect. He started with a single promise. Gentlemen, we are going to relentlessly chase perfection. And though we will never catch it, we will catch excellence. He believed in hard work, discipline, and faith, 3 pillars that turned ordinary players into champions. His players feared him, but they loved him more. They knew he demanded everything, and in return gave them purpose. Training camp under Lombardi wasn't just tough, it was legendary. Drills in the freezing rain, wind sprints until legs gave out, but no one dared complain, because they knew what he was building wasn't just a football team. It was a brotherhood. In 1960, the Packers reached the NFL championship game, and lost. But it was the beginning of something extraordinary. The next season they returned, stronger, meaner, hungrier. They dominated every opponent, led by quarterback Bart Starr, running backs Jim Taylor and Paul Hornung, and a defense that hit harder than Wisconsin winters. They won 5 NFL championships in 7 years, including the first 2 Super Bowls ever played. No team in football had ever seen such dominance. They weren't just champions, they were an idea. Under Lombardi, football became something spiritual, a test of faith, a measure of men. He once said, "Football is like life. It requires perseverance, self-denial, hard work, and respect for authority." And his players lived by that creed. Hinane, Bart Starr calling a play in the snow, Lombardi's cold breath in the air, fans screaming through the frost. The Packers became the symbol of everything America admired: grit, unity, and the pursuit of greatness through teamwork. Every Sunday, Lambeau Field became a cathedral, and Lombardi, its preacher. December 31st, 1967. Lambeau Field, the coldest game in NFL history. The Ice Bowl, temperature 15 degrees. Wind chill 48 degrees. The ground was so frozen that cleats couldn't dig in. When players hit the turf, it felt like concrete. Yet 50,000 fans filled the stands, faces wrapped in scarves, breath freezing midair, cheering through the cold. The Packers faced the Dallas Cowboys for the NFL championship and a shot at immortality. For 3 quarters, the game was brutal, a war of inches on a field of ice. In the final moments, with time running out, Green Bay trailed 17-14. Quarterback Bart Starr huddled his team. He looked them in the eyes and said simply, "Let's get it done." On the final play, he took the snap, followed the block of Jerry Kramer, and lunged across the goal line. Touchdown. Green Bay took the lead. Lambeau Field erupted. 50,000 people screaming into the frozen wind. Boom! Packers had done it again. Champions. And in that single moment, Bart Starr, Vince Lombardi, and the city of Green Bay became eternal. In 1969, just 2 years later, Vince Lombardi passed away. He was only 57. But his name would live forever. The Super Bowl trophy, the greatest symbol in football, was renamed in his honor: the Vince Lombardi Trophy. Even today, when a team wins the Super Bowl, they don't just lift silver, they lift history. They lift the legacy of a man and the town that taught him what pride really means. Perfection is not attainable, Lombardi once said. But if we chase perfection, we can catch excellence. The Green Bay Packers did just that. From the snow, they reached the stars. When the great Vince Lombardi left Green Bay, he took more than a coach's whistle with him. He took an era. The 1970s arrived with the chill of loss. The Packers had been kings of football, but now they wandered in the cold. Year after year, the trophies stopped coming. The roster changed. The faces changed. The spark was gone. It was as if the frozen tundra had swallowed the magic whole. Players came and went. Coaches tried to replicate Lombardi's discipline, but none could replicate his soul. The stadium, once roaring, became quieter. Snow still fell over Lambeau Field every winter, but instead of glory, it blanketed disappointment. Still, the fans stayed. They packed the stands through losing seasons, through games where the wind hurt and the scoreboard stung. Because for Green Bay, football was never just about winning. It was about belonging, about faith that someday, somehow, the light would return. And it would, carried by a wild, reckless gunslinger from Mississippi. from rust to fire. The Packers were desperate for a spark, and fate, as it always does in Green Bay, had a strange way of delivering. A trade brought in a young quarterback from Atlanta, Brett Favre. No one expected much. He was raw. He threw too hard, too wild, too fast. He played like a storm that didn't know when to stop. But that storm was exactly what Green Bay needed. From his very first start, Favre lit up Lambeau Field. He threw deep bombs that defied physics, celebrated every touchdown like a kid in the backyard, and wore his heart and his toughness on his sleeve. He played hurt. He played fearless. He played like every snap was a gift. Fans saw something in him, a little bit of themselves. Hard-working, unpolished, passionate, human. Brett Favre became the face of Green Bay's rebirth, and behind him, a new foundation was forming. Coach Mike Holmgren, defensive leader Reggie White, and a team built on heart, hustle, and hometown grit. The 1990s belonged to the Packers again. Super Bowl 21. The trophy returns home. The year was 1996. Green Bay, after nearly 30 years of heartbreak, was back at the top of the football world. They dominated the season with a blend of Favre's fire and Reggie White's strength. Their defense was fierce, their offense relentless. And on January 26, 1997, the Packers faced the New England Patriots in Super Bowl 21. The world watched as a sea of green and gold flooded New Orleans, and when the final whistle blew, Green Bay had won. 35-21. Brett Favre raised his helmet to the sky. Reggie White wept on the sideline. The Lombardi Trophy, named after their legendary coach, was coming home. It wasn't just a victory. It was a resurrection. For the first time in 3 decades, the people of Green Bay could look at the stars and know they belonged among them, from snow to stardom. For the next decade, Favre became the beating heart of the Packers. He played every game like it was his last, and somehow, it never was. Year after year, through injuries and age, he kept going. He became the Iron Man of football, starting 297 consecutive games, a record that may never be broken. He smiled after interceptions, laughed through pain, and led comebacks that defied belief. But with time came change. The young became old. The legend, human. In 2007, Brett Favre played his final game in Green Bay. He waved to the crowd one last time, the fans who had watched him grow from reckless boy to immortal hero. And though his departure was bittersweet, it made room for the next great chapter in Green Bay history. A new era of precision. When Favre left, many thought the dynasty would end with him. But in Green Bay, endings are only beginnings wearing winter coats. Waiting in the shadows was a young quarterback from California, Aaron Rodgers. Calm where Favre was chaotic, precise where Favre was passionate, Rodgers brought a new kind of magic to the tundra. He wasn't loud. He didn't scream. He simply dissected defenses with machine-like accuracy. Fans were hesitant at first. How could anyone follow Brett Favre? But Rodgers didn't try to be Favre. He became something different, something extraordinary. He made impossible throws look effortless. He read defenses like poetry. And when the moment came, he rose to the occasion with the quiet fire of destiny. February 6, 2011. Dallas, Texas. Super Bowl Huy. The Packers, once again, were underdogs. Facing the Pittsburgh Steelers, they were smaller, younger, and missing key starters. But Green Bay has never been about odds. It's been about heart. Aaron Rodgers played like a man possessed. Laser passes, unshakable calm. When the dust settled, the Packers were champions once again. 31-25. Rodgers was named Super Bowl MVP, and the Lombardi Trophy, for the fourth time, returned home to Green Bay. As Rodgers lifted it under the stadium lights, the crowd in Lambeau, thousands of miles away, erupted. Snow fell softly that night in Wisconsin, as if heaven itself was celebrating. From Curly Lambeau to Lombardi, from Favre to Rodgers, the legacy lived on. The small-town miracle had done it again. Through it all, one truth remained constant. Green Bay was still Green Bay. Players came and went. Coaches rose and fell. But Lambeau Field remained sacred ground. Every December, when the rest of America watched from warm living rooms, tens of thousands of fans still filled the bleachers, wrapped in scarves, snow on their shoulders, hearts on their sleeves. They didn't just watch football. They lived it. They passed it down like a family heirloom. And every new generation, whether watching Brett Favre's fire or Aaron Rodgers' precision, felt the same thing the first fans did a century ago, that this team is theirs. The Green Bay Packers are more than players or championships. They are tradition. They are identity. They are proof that greatness can come from anywhere, even from the smallest city buried in snow. After the Super Bowl XLV triumph, Green Bay had done what few thought possible. They had become great again. Not once, but twice, in two different eras. Under Aaron Rodgers, the Packers evolved into a new kind of dynasty, not one defined by domination, but by consistency. For a decade, they became a fixture in the playoffs. Season after season, they were contenders. It didn't matter if the winds howled or if the injuries came. The Packers were always there, steady, determined, proud. Rodgers wasn't like Favre. He didn't play with chaos. He played with clarity. Where Favre was fire, Rodgers was ice. Cold precision, unmatched talent, and quiet brilliance. He made throws that physics couldn't explain. He turned broken plays into magic. He made Lambeau Field glow again, even under the darkest December skies. In Green Bay, they don't measure greatness by how loud you shout, but by how long you endure. And endure they did. Every team has a stadium, but in Green Bay they have a cathedral. Lambeau Field is more than grass and concrete, it's holy ground. You can feel it when you walk in, the echo of Bart Starr's quarterback sneak, the ghost of Lombardi's voice, the roar of Favre, the precision of Rodgers. On winter Sundays, the field becomes a living memory. Fans sit through snowstorms wrapped in layers of green and gold. Some have been coming for 50 years. Others are the grandchildren of those first believers whose once passed the hat to save the team. Here, time doesn't move forward. It circles, endlessly, beautifully, like the breath of the crowd in the cold air. Every snowfall feels like a blessing. Every touchdown, a prayer answered. Because Lambeau isn't just where they play. It's where they belong. As the 2020s dawned, the NFL became faster, louder, and richer. Teams built billion-dollar arenas and changed cities for profit. But not Green Bay. While others chased fame, Green Bay held on to faith. Owned not by a billionaire, but by hundreds of thousands of fans, the Packers remain the only community-owned team in professional sports. Every shareholder meeting at Lambeau isn't about numbers. It's about connection. Grandparents bring grandchildren. Strangers shake hands like neighbors. They're not there for dividends. They're there for belonging. It's the purest form of football left, a partnership between people and pride. Voiceover. In a league built on money, Green Bay runs on memory. The Packers are proof that sometimes the smallest markets can have the biggest hearts. Nothing lasts forever, not even legends. By the early 2020s, the winds began to shift again in Wisconsin. Aaron Rodgers, the man who carried the torch for over a decade, faced the same question Brett Favre once did. When do you let go? He had given everything: MVP seasons, record-breaking throws, countless moments of brilliance. But football is not just about skill, it's about time. And time always wins. When Rodgers left Green Bay in 2023, it felt familiar. The bittersweet ache of watching history turn another page. The fans didn't boo. They didn't cry. They understood. Because in Green Bay, they've seen this story before. Heroes rise, heroes fall, but the spirit, that never leaves. In 2024, the torch passed once again, this time to Jordan Love, a young quarterback with quiet confidence and calm eyes. At first there was doubt, there always is, but Green Bay doesn't demand perfection. They demand heart. And Jordan Love showed heart. Game after game, he began to carve his own identity. Not Favre, not Rodgers, but himself. A new era began, rooted in the same soil that's seen over a century of football, the soil of belief. Chapter 18. What Green Bay Means. 100 years ago, a young man named Curly Lambeau gathered his friends in a small Wisconsin town and dreamed of something that could unite people. He couldn't have imagined this. A franchise with more championships than any in NFL history. A team whose name means more than wins or losses. A community that built something eternal. Every city has a team, but only one team is its city. The Packers aren't just from Green Bay. They are Green Bay. They are its people, its weather, its soul, a living monument to resilience. They've known cold, and they've known glory. They've fallen, and they've risen again, again and again. Because in this place, football isn't entertainment. It's identity. It's fathers and sons tossing a ball in the snow. It's mothers knitting scarves in green and gold. It's neighbors helping shovel the stadium seats before kickoff. It's a town, a family, and a dream that never died. Maybe it's the snow. Maybe it's the people. Maybe it's just fate. But something about Green Bay makes you believe. Believe that greatness doesn't depend on size. That heart can outlast money. That in a frozen town in Wisconsin, hope will always find a way. Hinein, Tuitroiten Lambeau Field, Den Vanghat, Kwalensung. Flycam Quayrong Te Hangin Fan Dung Hat Kwaka Taichum Team. They say legends fade, but in Green Bay, legends don't fade. They echo. Every time a new player walks through the tunnel, every time the crowd roars beneath the snow, every time that chant rises, "Go, Pack, go!" the legacy breathes again. From a meat-packing plant to the mountaintop. From frozen fields to Super Bowl glory. From Curly Lambeau to Vince Lombardi. From Favre's fire to Rodgers' calm, the story remains the same. The Green Bay Packers aren't defined by trophies. They're defined by time, by endurance, by the unbreakable bond between a town and its team. In the heart of winter, under the falling snow, one truth endures. The spirit of Green Bay lives on. Fade out. Slow-motion shot of snow falling over Lambeau Field at sunset. The lights dim. The crowd chants softly. Go, Pack, go. From snow to stardom.